was beautiful. Yeah, beautiful, right? Like, whether you understood it or not, you got it, right? So thank you for that, Danielle, and Daniel, I should say, and our music ministry. And I hope y'all enjoyed some of the Spanish heritage, Latin heritage that we brought to you in this past month as we celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month here at Unity on the Bay. You know, it's part of our heritage at Unity on the Bay, right? And so to be able to bring some light to it and allow that to inspire us, I think was a really wonderful gift, and I hope that you felt the same way. Now, I also want to share with you before we get going with the rest of the service is that I'll be facilitating a really great workshop, if I do say so myself, and it's about speaking love. You know, so many times, the guidance, the inspiration to be out in the world is wonderful and great, and we sometimes don't feel like we have some of the tools to be able to live into greater harmony within our relationships, right? Live into greater understanding in our relationships, whether they are with an intimate partner or somebody at work. And so this workshop is really about mastering the art of communication so that we can speak from a place of love, do so in our own power, embody that love, be empowered by it, and speak our truth in a way that will be more fully understood and received by the people around us. So if you are having any challenge in any of your relationships, or if you simply just want to continue to hone that skill of nonviolent communication, having crucial conversations with people that or in relationships that are needing it, I want you to join us it's a 2-part workshop that begins next Saturday and it will go on for 2 weeks. So check it out on our website. Now, I love that we are a community that is so awake and so conscious, right? I mean, we have really journeyed, we've evolved, we have done the work, and if I do say so myself, we are pretty enlightened. Oh, okay, you already got it, right? And I personally feel so enlightened that I want to share some really powerful affirmations to lift us, to support us into a greater way of being. Are you ready? These have worked for me, and I want all of you to be as enlightened as I am. As I let go of guilt, I am in touch with my inner sociopath. Does that feel true for anybody? I no longer need to punish, deceive, or compromise myself unless I really want to keep being employed. Every day I am learning more and more that criticism is not nearly as effective as sabotage. Are these affirmations ones you want to take on? No, maybe not. How about this one? I am willing to make the mistakes if somebody else is willing to learn from them. Or my favorite, I am grateful that I'm not as judgmental as the many self-righteous people around me. Do those sound like enlightened, powerful affirmations that we can all use in our lives? I hope you're saying no. But it's so funny to me, right? Because as we move through this greater understanding of our truth and being empowered and moving into a greater sense of enlightenment, we realize that it's a work in progress. And we can get lost in it, and we can become self-righteous in our enlightenment, right? And we can tell ourselves that we are at a place where we may not be. Now, what I'm wanting to share with you today is that this work of being enlightened is a moment-by-moment process. This thing of being awakened to our truth, yes, we become awakened to the fact that there is something deeper within us, but it's a moment-by-moment awakening to how that is showing up in every one of our experiences. The more that we move in this journey, and in this evolution, the more that there is to unpack, amen? Have you experienced that? There's more to learn. There's more to evolve through. How many of us thought that as soon as we awaken to truth, life would just be easy peasy, that we may not have that challenges? Now, I do believe that life can become easier because the difficulties, we move through them with a little bit more ease. But it doesn't mean that we won't have the difficulties. It won't mean that we won't have the challenges. And so for me, really important is that we own the responsibility of what it means to be awakened. Own the responsibility that we are on this journey, and it is a continual process of deepening, of expanding, and of being willing to shift and see what shifts may be required. One of the things that Eckhart Tolle says in Oneness with All Life is that with the grace of awakening comes responsibility. You can either try to go on as if nothing has happened, or you can see its significance and recognize the arising of awareness as the most important thing that can happen to you. How do we honor the fact that we have awakened? How do we really honor and recognize the sacredness of this aha that we had that said, wait, there's something more to life. There is something more to my connection with the divine, that there is something more to who I have thought myself to be, and that I can continue to be in the process of recognizing more of my own divinity and how it shows up in the world. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit, We don't give ourselves enough credit for that one initial aha. So you're in this room, you've had that aha. Give yourself some credit. Give yourself a little pat on the back. Good job, right? Like, this is what life is all about, to become awakened. And we give ourselves a pat on the back, we celebrate ourselves for awakening, and then we ask ourselves, how does that show up in my life now? In this moment? Awakening enough to the divine questions that we can ask ourselves. Who are we being in this moment? Who are we being in the world? And then what are we being? What are we doing with that? What are we doing in the world? Now, I know that the second question, what are we doing, we ask ourselves all the time. If you're like me, you ask yourself all the time, because you get to moments of, wait, what am I doing? Or, wait, what am I doing, right? Could you imagine if before we even went to the what, we asked ourselves, who am I being? Who am I being in this moment? Who do I choose to be in this moment, and allow that to be what informs the doing? Now, we've been sharing about Oneness with All Life and Eckhart Tolle, and we've been talking about recognizing the power of the I am presence, the space, the awareness, the mindfulness, the consciousness that we can have in our experiences and in every single moment. And the question is, what do we do when we have that awareness? It's not enough, for me at least, to simply just be in that awareness. It's like asking ourselves, how does that awareness now want to show up in the world? How am I a conduit for allowing, how am I the window for that level of consciousness and that level of understanding of ourselves as love, as light, as peace, as wisdom to show up not only for my own blessing, but for the blessing that I get to be in the world around me. And so it is about going deeper into the beingness and the doingness. But the beingness informs the doing. For too long, I feel like we've had to choose, right? Where it's like we make wrong the doing because we want to be in the being, but the reality is that they both support each other. For us to be able to live the life of abundance, wholeness, and that greater heaven on earth that we want to experience, it's bringing both of those things into harmony. So the question to ask ourselves in this moment, at least for me, is, am I being in harmony? Is what I am doing in harmony with what I am and who I choose to be as an expression of the divine? We're both 100% spiritual, you've heard me say this, and 100% human. How do we honor both? And if we honor both, the beingness and the doingness, the spiritual beingness of us and the humanity of us, and being out in the world and living in this experience, then I really believe that we get to the place where Eckhart Tolle reminds us we have two purposes in life. We have that inner purpose, and that's primary, That is the most important one that we can step into and allow ourselves to recognize, but we also have our outer purpose. How is the inner purpose informing the outer? How is our beingness being allowed to express itself in the world? Not like the cocoon, right? Right, like the butterfly, right? Like the butterfly or the worm goes into a cocoon to shift, to change, but it steps out of the cocoon. It flies from it as a transformed being. And so how do we do that? How do we go within, but then allow ourselves to fly from that space? Both are an important part of the process. Now, I do believe that if we're so concerned about the outer purpose, first and foremost, it leads us to a place of how many of you have felt tired, unfulfilled? And I myself, as somebody who has felt like I was living on purpose for quite a long time, and the reality is that before I fully realized that inner purpose, I was living out in the world, yes, doing good work. I'm not minimizing the work that I was doing, and I was getting tired. I was feeling the weight of it. I don't feel like I could have gone much further. And it was that really brought me to a place of recognizing there's got to be more than that. See, because what was giving energy to that living out in the world and the doing this wasn't the reservoir of energy that is the inner life. And when we talk about that inner life and we talk about that inside job that we are asked to do, we're talking about really connecting to source, to knowing ourselves as the expression of source. And it is only in source where we will have unlimited energy to do what is ours to do. Unlimited love to share that with the people that we are to share love with. You know, sometimes have you felt that you feel like there's just not enoughness to go around or to do the things that you want to do? Well, the invitation is to maybe think about where does that enoughness actually come from? And I can tell you from my own personal experience that enoughness is not an outside job, it is an inner job. And when we go within, it's not just we have enough, we have more than enough to share from. And so are your and mine outer actions in alignment with mindfulness, with the consciousness of what is within us, so that we are not only energized, but we are empowered by our own divinity. What is your beingness inviting you into? Now, some of you may have seen actually, because I posted on Facebook, but I've been really sitting with my inner and outer purposes, right? As we know, the installation is happening next week, and I really do hope that you all join us, because it's not only an installation, but it's really a celebration of who we are as a community. I've shared with you before, I am an expression of what this community has been to me. But so I've been sitting with that divine purpose and how it's come alive for me and how I've been stepping into it more fully. And it's really an interesting thing, because now looking back, I realized that there were inklings of that purpose in so many areas of my life and so many stages of my life, but that I only realized once I was in the beingness, in the present moment, and then been able to really recognize with clarity what spirit was guiding me into. Now, some of you remember the story that many eons ago, when I was in elementary school and middle school, you know, at Our Lady of the Lakes, my Father Stack used to greet my parents as, how are the parents of the future priest of Our Lady of the Lakes doing this Sunday? You know, so there were inklings that there was this greater purpose in my life. I just wasn't able to really see it. Another time, after Our Lady of the Lakes, I went to high school at Chaminade, and I was in student campus ministry there, and I had inklings of that purpose. But it was just an inkling. I didn't fully recognize it. Now, I found myself in Hollywood, Florida, Hollywood just a few minutes from here, over the weekend, where Chaminade is. And I realized that it wasn't by mere coincidence that I was sort of driving around the space, especially as I recognize how I'm moving into a greater expression of my purpose. So I decided to go into the halls of my old high school and walk around and see and just experience what it meant to me. But I also went into the chapel. And in the chapel, that's the chapel where I used to lead student services, where I would receive, where there was retreats going on. And I meditated there and I sat there for a while. And it was really interesting. The Bible was open. This big Bible was open. And it was of course, because I'm curious, and I'm always looking for signs, I went up to it, and it had the story of John the Baptist. And in the story, they ask him, "Who are you? Who are you? Are you the Messiah? Who are you?" And he would say, "I'm not the Messiah." So they asked again, "Who are you? What do you say about yourself?" And John in that moment says, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord.'" Now, of course, I looked at what that means for me as I continue to just be open to being that presence for myself of greater understanding of that Christ presence and inviting other people to realize that. But think about it for yourself also. How are you inviting how you show up in the world to come from that place within you, that Christ consciousness, that inner purpose that you have? It was so in my face in that moment how things had been showing me, and I just wasn't really seeing it. And I've been really involved with social justice issues. I've been really involved with being out in the community and doing good work. And again, it wasn't that those things were not good. Those were good things. But I realized more and more, because I wasn't connected to the inner purpose of being conscious of my own divinity, of asking myself before, what can I do? Asking myself, who am I? And letting that be what energized the actions, it just wasn't sustainable. And although it was headed in the right direction, actually, it needed just a small little shift that took place when I came to Unity, when I decided to see the truth that it was all first an inside job. And then it became, that's why we're sitting here, right? Like, that's why I'm sitting here and standing here in this moment. And so the question for us is, how can we each, moment by moment, ensure that our outer actions and our outer purpose of doing out in the world are fully supported by the inner work? How is your beingness living out in the world in a conscious way? And it is important to be asking ourselves that moment by moment. And I also want to say that Eckhart Tolle, one of the things he says is, like, it can be the moment-to-moment experience of doing. So how you're being in this room, how you are being out in the supermarket, what you are doing at home, and even as we become more present to the present moment, what is it that's coming out for us to be the way in which we can be the greatest blessing in the world? So not just in the moment-by-moment experience, but what is your vision? What is your vision for that higher purpose? If you have that purpose, that divine purpose of what it is that you are doing out in the world to lift up the consciousness of the world, to share all of the beautiful attributes and skills and abilities and all that you are in the world, the way that only you can, beautiful. Maybe this is a moment of just reflecting on how you can bring more of that inner sense of being to those experiences. But if you're somebody who may not fully recognize just what your purpose in the life is, how you have been created and blessed to be a greater blessing to the world, then this is also an opportunity. And it's never too late to ask ourselves that question. What is the way in which I was created that will be the best and greatest blessing to the world? Never too late. A lot of people that we recognize as being on purpose didn't start being on purpose until later in life. And so this is an opportunity to really question ourselves. Who am I and what am I doing? Who am I and how is that to show up in the world? And it's all about awakened doing. Eckhart says, awakened doing is the alignment of your outer purpose, what you do with your inner purpose. Awakening and staying awake. Through awakened doing, you become one with the outgoing purpose of the universe. Consciousness flows through you into this world. It flows into your thoughts and inspires them. It flows into what you do and guides and empowers it. Do what must be done through you. Ask yourself, what is the greatest way in which I can contribute, you can contribute to humanity? A lot of times, our purpose, we think, is determined by the people that are around us. What people said that we were good at, what people said that we should do. How many of us went into our first professions because that's what our parents wanted to do? Yeah. Or because that was what was trending. I remember when I graduated from high school, the thing was like, there's a need for nurses. So like half my class decided to become nurse, not because they were passionate about it, but because it's what they could get as employment and feel secure. Our security doesn't come from the world outside of us. Our security comes from knowing what is within us and living into that more fully. So many of us, live an outer purpose really because of our fears. Our fears that we may not have security if we live our truth. Our fears that we may not be loved or appreciated, or our family may feel a certain way about us for going our own way and being in our own road. And even our fear that we may be inadequate about it. Because again, our trust is not in the divine purpose of beingness, but this out expression, this world that we have defined as the one that tells us if we are worthy, if we are on the right track. Marianne Williamson talks to us. Our biggest fear is that we may be not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. If we really question ourselves, it really isn't that we are inadequate. That's like a cover. What we are really fearful is just how much power we have. Maybe we're scared of how do we be able to harness that power. Maybe we're scared about the responsibility of recognizing that we have been divinely inspired to contribute to the world in a way that nobody else can be. We have a singular way that we have been created. We are unique expressions of the divine. And in a tapestry of life, each unique expression has a place, a purpose, and has an importance to it. And when we play it small, when we don't allow ourselves to expand from the place of who I am and how that defines what I will be in the world and how I will show up, we are doing a disservice to ourselves and to humanity. So it's important that we ask ourselves to be more clear about this inner and outer purpose. And it is more important for us to also recognize the ways in which the tools, the skills in which we can ask ourselves, am I being on purpose? I love that Eckhart Tolle is actually very clear on this. There are signs that we can receive when we are on purpose in the moment and that greater purpose. And those signs are joy. Can we find joy in what we're doing? Acceptance. If we're fighting it, if we are pushing back on it, maybe it's time to go within first. And also enthusiasm. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I could have done what I was doing before, but I wasn't going to be enthused forever with it. When I realized that first and foremost, I am a spiritual being that is invited to have this human expression, is the moment that I realized that's where the zeal is. That's where the love will never leave me. That is where the energy and the power will never do us wrong. And he says, if you are not in the state of either acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, look closely and you will find that you are creating suffering for yourself and others. As we live out our purpose, let us recognize that it is a beautiful blessing for ourselves and others. And so the invitation for each of us this week, if you choose to accept it, how many of you, without knowing what it is, you trust me enough? I didn't even finish my question. You trust me enough that you are going to take this on for this week. This is the practice for this week. As we recognize more fully that inner purpose of being mindful and conscious of who we are, and asking ourselves then, what do we do with that in the greater scheme of life and in the moment of moment, in anything that we start this week? Any big things or any small things? Can I either be in acceptance? Can I be in joy? Or can I be in enthusiasm? Only one of those needs to be true according to Eckhart Tolle. But if your answer to them is no for all three, then it is time to remember being is what's most important and go within until you find the things that can bring you acceptance of your truth, joy for who you are and how you are in the world, and enthusiasm to allow the world to see what an amazing blessing you are. Mark Twain says that the two most important days in life are the day that you were born and the day you discover the reason why. Make every moment, every day, every experience a rediscovery of your why. It is through that we not only realize just how blessed we are, but that then we can give thanks that through our actions, we are a blessing to others. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you, Reverend Juan. I must say that having already worked with you for 4 months, I want to thank you for the gift of what you modeled for me. Awaken doing, really. You walk this talk. And I'm honored to have that presence in my life. And we all are. And I know it's a big chapter that is opening up. And I just see you shining like never before. Thank you, Juan. As you know, we believe in the spiritual law of giving and receiving. It's an amazing law. And we get to practice every week as we show our gratitude in the way of giving. And this is the time which we do it. We would certainly love for you to go green, and we have a number. Believe me, I've been using it, and it's great. Once you create that, each time you just text, and you don't have to enter credit card nor anything. It gets done immediately. Also, we can give you the opportunity of doing it here by check or cash, and our ushers are here to give you one. So let's take a moment, whether you are going to actually give today or not, just to be in that energy of giving, because it's part of our beingness. When we give, we are fully expressing our divine nature, which is all giving, all love, generosity. We hold some seconds of silence to just let that energy of beingness in the form of generosity be. I want to say thank you for your gifts, for your energy, for your beingness. And this is the time then that we culminate this section by blessing our gifts. So join me at this time by saying, divine love that I am blesses all that I give and all that I receive. And so it is. We'd like to remind everybody that part of that, I was going to say about the prayer chaplains, but also that we get to extend that generosity in the form of blessings. Each time we bless something or somebody, it will expand. Whether you appreciates. And this is a time which we appreciate the children that we might not necessarily see here in the sanctuary, but we know are there. And we're holding the highest vision for them as we move forward into the future. So coming back to the heart space and being centered in full love for our children, feel the love for them. They're connecting with us right now. And we say, children, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the Christ in you. And we see you doing great, great things. And so it is. Reverend Juan, please step up, and please be reminded that our prayer chaplains are always here to pray with you.
Thank you, Anna. I also want to invite you to My gosh, the symbolism is everywhere these days. I was invited to support a nonprofit organization called Educate Tomorrow. They have an event called Over the Edge, and it's taking place next Saturday, right before the installation. And I am moving through some of my discomfort, some of my fears, and I'm going to be rappelling down an 8-story building for Educate Tomorrow. So on Saturday at 2:30 p.m., around 2:30, you can start watching our social media. We'll have that there. Send me lots of prayerful energy and love. And if you want to learn more about Educate Tomorrow or the Over the Edge program, just go to their website, educatetomorrow.org. Yes, everybody take a breath with me on that one, huh? And with that breath, I'm going to invite all of you to stand so that we can say our prayer for protection and then follow that with our peace song. Together, let us affirm. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.